Hopkins. Crawford does that, but more than that. He studies his opponent, figures out exactly how to beat him up, and after a couple rounds just starts to beat the hell out of him, and that's what happened here tonight.
Today we're going to be listening to some sound bites from Terrence Crawford. He's a student of the game of boxing. I guarantee you that if you're a football athlete, you're going to learn something from this. Nevertheless, if you play other sports, there is going to be some things that you can learn from this episode also. I can guarantee it. But more particularly, football is a violent sport. Linebacker, arguably the most violent position on the field. This episode is going to show you, especially when it comes to studying film, studying your opponent, how to have success early and late in competition. Understanding what you can learn from in terms of understanding your own habits and tendencies, but more importantly, your opponents. How to make adjustments on the fly, how to make adjustments play to play, how to make adjustments from series to series, down to down, and moment to moment. Stay tuned and enjoy this episode. Too often, the elite high school athlete fails at the next level. Too many gifted high school athletes fail at the next level. Why do some people never make it past the amateur level? That's what we're going to discuss today. And we're going to discuss some really simple concepts. And the answer to that is you don't become a student of the game. You're not willing to do the boring, tedious learning assignments. Like I said before, why do some athletes fail at the next level? Why do amateurs fail at the professional level? Why do gifted athletes fail at the next level? You're failing, or you failed because you didn't want to become a student of the game. You failed because you didn't want to study your playbook. You failed because you didn't want to study film. You failed because you didn't want to slow the game down. Sometimes when you're learning a playbook, sometimes when you're trying to understand what's going on in film, you have to watch the film and then you have to get out on the field or in your training environment or in your sporting environment and walk through your assignment, walk through your alignment, walk through your alignment and assignment, then go through it at half speed, then go through it at full speed. But more importantly, you have to learn to watch film and be okay with watching film with your head coach and your assistant coaches, or more specifically, your position coach, depending on the sport, whether it's football, baseball, track and field, volleyball, softball. Some sports you might not necessarily have a playbook, but there is film to watch. There is things to go through slowly. And you can always, I'm going to say this again, you can always take the first step in building a relationship with your coach. You can always take the first step in deepening the relationship with your coach. You can always take the first step in building a significant relationship and friendship with your coach. So how do you sustain something that you know you need to learn? How do you sustain an effort in doing something that you know you need to do, such as watching 60, 90, or 2 hours of film, maybe per day? How do you sustain a boring, tedious task? Listen as Max Kellerman, boxing commentator, described Terrence Crawford's competitiveness.
His competitiveness, Crawford's competitiveness, can come out in the ring as sadistic. You know, he's one of the few fighters, Roy, you think of a guy like Roberto Duran with a very different style, the great lightweight and welterweight champ, who enjoyed inflicting punishment. And
maybe some of you have goals, maybe you don't. But one of the things you have to consider is that you have to overcome setbacks. You have to be willing to put aside setbacks. And sometimes that means you're going to be watching yourself on film or video making mistakes more times than doing things successful. So it's not about the mistakes. It's not about the criticism. It's not about looking silly or looking stupid or not knowing what you were doing. It's about learning to lose, learning from your failures, learning from mistakes, because you can't be afraid to fail. You can't be afraid to make mistakes. And when we're talking about a film study and studying your playbook, if you play a sport where there is a playbook, you have to, like I said before, you have to be willing to overcome setbacks. You have to be willing to put aside setbacks. How do you handle success? How do you handle failure? We're talking about film study, being a student of the game, studying your playbook if you have one, being able to walk through drills at half speed, being able to walk through drills, then being able to go through a drill or an assignment at half speed, and then going to it and then going through it at full speed. You can do something or make some great plays at the amateur level or against inferior or average competition. Even though you made a great play, you could still harm yourself, or you could still be committing a mistake or some type of foul or injustice to your position or to your game at the next level. You know, I'm sure you've heard this before, but coach, I made a great play. And then you're still getting critiqued for making a great play. It could have been that you made an outstanding catch, but you ran a terrible route. It could be that you completed a nice pass, but your footwork was horrible. And it wouldn't work at the next level because that footwork will have you sacked by a defensive tackle or defensive end. What's your vision? Do you have a vision? You have to develop your vision. But if you're studying your film, if you're becoming a student of the game, that's going to help facilitate your vision, because you're watching yourself, you're watching others. If you're with your head coach, your position coach, or another assistant coach, they're going to be helping you with that, talking through what could be a mistake, talking through what could be a failure. And all of this, having a vision, is going to help increase your confidence. Because I've often said this before, your visualization helps, but it's also going to help for you to see yourself in motion. Listen as Roy Jones discusses the benefits of being a student of the game and a master of your craft.
That's guys who know how to make those adjustments right on the fly. They know who to do what against. This is what you like about top pound for pound fighters. They know how to make changes and make things happen.
See, the byproduct of becoming a student of the game, a master of your craft, is that you're able to make adjustments in real time. You're able to counter plan. You're able to counter strategy. And you're able to create counter plans on top of counter plans. And it becomes intuitive in competition. But you can only get there through the tedious part of studying film, becoming a master of X's and O's, understanding strategy, and understanding the tactical part of your competition at the same time. And you have to always remember, the eye in the sky doesn't lie. Become used to that, accept it up front. But more importantly is to gather a proper perspective. I would encourage you to focus on the positive. Having a positive mental attitude when you know you're about to go watch 60 to 90 minutes of film with a coach. Having a proper attitude, having a proper perspective when you're about to go through X's and O's in the playbook. Having the proper perspective when you might walk through a drill or an assignment for a whole hour and you're just walking through it. It's like I said before, to get to where you want to be, you have to be willing to go through the boring, tedious task. Because if you can't do it slow, you're not going to be able to do it fast. If you can't do it proper or alone or without the pressure of an environment, of a competition environment, you're not going to all of a sudden do it right when you're in front of 20, 30,000 people. If you're in high school, that might be 2,000 or 3,000 people, depending on the sport. How do you confront unexpected or seemingly overwhelming obstacles? Sometimes studying film could be overwhelming. You feel like you're getting critiqued. You feel like you're getting talked about. You feel like you're getting bashed. But at the end of the day, the coach is trying to help you. And you can see here how proper preparation leads to a killer instinct. Listen in.
And then he capitalizes once he gets them to do that.
And when I said sadistic earlier, I mean, he's a mean guy in there.
100%.
I brought up Roberto Duran. Pernell Whitaker was another one of these all-time great lightweights. Had mean streaks in the ring. Won a knockout puncher in Duran. Obviously, Pernell Whitaker wasn't, but was just as mean. Liked beating the other guy up. Roy, you say that that's what you're supposed to do as a great prize fighter, but I remember instances of you waving the referee in so you wouldn't have to hurt your opponent.
See, when you study the game so much and so often and master your craft, you're always going to have a leg, or you're always going to have the upper hand over your opponent. You're always going to be able to sniff out tendencies and weaknesses that you can take advantage of. Understand the playbook, understand the system, understanding you executing an assignment in competition. So some things you have to see in the learning process, you have to look at it as natural. And you have to remember, watching film, you might find a mistake. We're trying to correct that mistake. But ultimately, when you leave the room after that, it is unimportant, meaning that it doesn't have to stay with you for the rest of the day. It shouldn't gnaw you. When you have that positive mental attitude, as I discussed before, and you have a proper perspective, you're looking at it from a different approach. You're not worried about being critiqued. You're not worried about the criticism. You're trying to take the meat and spit out the bones. So take what you can use, take what you can learn from, and then apply it to your game. Take what you can learn and apply it to your sport. Take what you can learn and apply it to your strategy. Take what you can learn and apply it to your tactics. But you're never going to get there if you don't become a student of the game, a student of your sport. And what's always required is you watching film. You have to watch yourself. You have to be with somebody that is competent, that can show you how to watch film, that can show you what's good, what's not so good, what's proper form, what's proper technique. It's not enough to look at something 1,000 times and then gloat over you making an outstanding play. Because like I said before, at certain levels, you can make a good play, but at the next level, it could be a grave error or a grave mistake due to a technical or tactical dysfunction. And you have to know this. And the only way you can come to this understanding is becoming a student of the game. And to be a student of the game, you have to learn how to walk through assignments. You have to learn how to do things half speed before you do them at full speed. You have to go through and not be afraid of conversation with your coaches as you're watching a past performance. 90% of athletes fail at the next level because they're not willing to do the boring and tedious assignments of becoming a student of the game, which requires studying film, doing things at half speed over and over. It might take you doing one assignment 1,000 reps, where you get to a point where you can do things in your sleep. You get to a point where you can do things with one eye or two eyes closed. How do you feel when you're doing something that might be considered boring or tedious? Well, depending on the way you look at it, your training and learning is definitely going to be related to how you feel. If you're feeling good, you're going to have a good experience. If you're feeling good, you're going to learn something. If you're looking at it from the proper perspective, you're definitely going to learn something. Therefore, part of being mentally tough is developing the ability to create positive feelings regardless of circumstances. It's just you and the coach in a film room for a 90-minute section, for a 90-minute film session. You got to learn to say stop to negative thoughts and substitute those with positive affirmations and positive behaviors over and over. How do you improve your mental powers, your control, your anxiety when you're exposing yourself to adverse conditions? It could be a loss on film. You could have a bad game. You could have made some mistakes. You could have lost the game. How do you do this? Again, you have to learn from watching yourself. And remember this, each time you succeed in the process, you build confidence and determination. And one example to this kind of mental toughness training is to practice with distractions. And that's when you go from walkthrough to half speed to full speed, and then you can incorporate distractions. Because practicing in the presence of what could be considered external distractions can teach you to ignore them and to calm any inner mental distractions that result from them. Irrespective of the particular adversity that you overcome, the fact that you overcame it will be of great value to you. Because as they say, when the going gets tough, you can focus on how you can overcome adversity before and be inspired to rise to the occasion once again. I can't stress it enough. Why 90% of amateur athletes fail. Why 90% of high school athletes never go to the next level. Why a lot of gifted athletes fail at the next level. You have to take time to do the tedious and boring assignments. It's a part of the process. It's a part of the training. It's a part of your road to success. So as I close out, you got to become a student of the game. If you play sports where you have a playbook, you have to master that playbook. You should know that playbook as well or better than your coaches. You have to be willing to do the boring and tedious task of watching film. You have to build a relationship with your coach. You can't be afraid to get critiqued or criticized by your coach as you're watching film and studying the playbook. In certain sports, it's about alignment and assignment. Sometimes you got to walk through this, then do it at half speed before you do it at full speed, and then add some distractions to make you a better athlete. Stay with me. You need to hear this one more time about studying your opponent.
Just like a chess master throughout the fight, and they added up throughout the fight to a wide win for Hopkins. Crawford does that, but more than that, he studies his opponent, figures out exactly how to beat him up, and after a couple rounds just starts to beat the hell out of him, and that's what happened here tonight.
Coaches, it's finally here. A workbook for athletes designed by athletes. Something that's going to help you help your student athlete develop their leadership skills. Something that's going to help you help your student athlete develop character development. Along with that, we have chapters that's going to help the student athlete define and overcome fear. It isn't for the student athlete to do by themselves. It's for the parent to assist the student athlete. It's for the coach to assist the student athlete and bridge the gap in communication. To learn more, visit sportsmastery.com/buy workbook. If you have any personal questions, drop me an email, drop me a line at Deshawn, DESHAWN @sportsmastery.com. Peace and blessings.